My name is Alex, and for most of my life, I thought I was doing everything right. I had a decent job, paid my bills on time, and every single month, without fail, a chunk of my paycheck went to my health insurance premium. It was my safety net, my peace of mind. I never imagined that this very safety net would one day feel more like a cage. It started subtly, a persistent fatigue I couldn't shake, a strange ache in my joints that wasn't from the gym. My doctor, a kind woman with worried eyes, ran test after test. The results came back, and the diagnosis hit me like a physical blow. It was a rare, aggressive autoimmune condition. The kind of thing you read about but never think will happen to you, but there was hope. A new treatment, a biologic infusion, had shown incredible promise. It could halt the progression, maybe even put the disease into remission. It was my lifeline. My doctor immediately submitted the pre-authorization request to my insurance company. We were optimistic. After all, this wasn't an elective procedure. This was to save my quality of life, to stop my own body from destroying itself. A week later, the first letter arrived. Denied. The reason? The treatment was deemed not medically necessary. Not medically necessary. I read the words over and over, the paper trembling in my hands. How could the company I paid to protect my health decide that saving my health wasn't necessary? My doctor was furious. She said, "Don't worry, Alex. We'll appeal." This is just what they do, so we started the appeal process. It was a mountain of paperwork. I had to write letters, detailing my daily struggles. I described how walking to the mailbox felt like running a marathon, how my hands, once steady, now struggled to hold a coffee cup. I gathered every test result, every doctor's note, every piece of evidence we could find. We sent it all in, a thick manila envelope filled with my pain and my hope. Weeks turned into a month. The denial came back again. This time, they suggested I try older, less effective medications first. My doctor explained that these step therapies were a common delay tactic. They came with a host of side effects and were far less likely to work for my specific condition. It felt like they were asking me to set myself on fire just to prove I needed a fire extinguisher. Meanwhile, my body wasn't waiting for the paperwork to be approved. The disease was advancing. The fatigue became a bone-deep exhaustion that sleep couldn't fix. The joint pain was a constant, grinding presence. I started missing work, first a day here, then a week there. My savings began to dwindle. The stress of the insurance fight was a poison, compounding the effects of the illness. I was on the phone for hours every day, navigating automated menus, being put on hold, transferred from one department to another. Each person I spoke to was polite, but powerless, reading from a script. They were just gatekeepers to the care I desperately needed. We filed a second appeal, then a third. Each denial came with a new, more convoluted reason. It was exhausting. It felt personal. I was no longer a person to them. I was a claim number, a liability on a balance sheet. They were betting that I would get tired, that I would give up, that I would just go away, and honestly, some days I came very close. The physical pain was immense, but the emotional toll of being told repeatedly that your suffering doesn't matter was soul-crushing. My friends and family tried to help, but they couldn't understand the sheer bureaucratic nightmare I was trapped in. It was a lonely, isolating battle. My health deteriorated further. I lost my job because I could no longer perform my duties. With my job went my insurance. I scrambled to get onto a new, even more expensive plan through the marketplace, burning through what was left of my savings. All while the disease continued its relentless march, I was now using a cane to walk. My world had shrunk to the four walls of my small apartment. The lowest point came during a peer-to-peer review. My doctor had to get on a call with a doctor employed by the insurance company to argue my case. I sat in her office, listening on speakerphone. The insurance doctor, who had never met me, never examined me, and had only glanced at my file, questioned every single decision my doctor had made. He was dismissive, arrogant. He made it sound like we were trying to pull a fast one. I listened as my life, my pain, my future was debated like it was a line item on an expense report. The denial was upheld. I was devastated. I had no fight left in me. I was broke, sick, and felt utterly defeated. What more could I do? I had followed all the rules, and the system had chewed me up and spat me out. A few weeks later, I was attempting to buy groceries. It was a monumental effort. Every step was agony. I was halfway down an aisle when the world started to tilt. The lights seemed to dim, a wave of nausea washed over me, and my legs just gave out. I collapsed right there, between the cereal and the canned soup. People rushed over. Someone called an ambulance. The next thing I remember is waking up in a hospital bed, the familiar, sterile smell filling my nostrils. I had been in the hospital for 3 days. The public collapse had triggered a cascade of events. The story got picked up by a local news station. A reporter, sympathetic to my plight, ran a story about my 9-month battle with my insurance company. Suddenly, my private struggle was public. The story went viral on social media. People were outraged. The hashtag #ApproveAlex started trending. My insurance company's social media pages were flooded with angry comments. The public pressure was immense. Suddenly, the faceless corporation had a face and it was a PR nightmare. 2 days after the news story aired, my phone rang. It was a high-level case manager from the insurance company. Her voice was dripping with manufactured sympathy. She told me there had been a re-evaluation of my case. She said, "Good news, Alex. We're happy to inform you that the treatment has been approved." I just sat there, silent, holding the phone. There was no joy, no relief, just a hollow, empty feeling. The approval wasn't a victory, it was a confession. It was an admission that they could have approved it all along. They had the power to stop my suffering 9 months ago, but they chose not to. They waited until I was broken, until I had lost my job, my savings, my mobility. They waited until I collapsed in public and became an embarrassment they couldn't ignore. The approval felt like a slap in the face. It wasn't a gesture of care. It was a calculated business decision to manage bad press. I eventually started the treatment, and slowly, very slowly, it began to work. The pain started to recede, the fatigue lessened. It's a long road back, and I'll never get back what I lost. The scars from this fight aren't just physical. They are a deep-seated distrust in a system that is supposed to heal but often seems designed to break you. My story is not unique, far from it. Thousands of people are fighting these same battles in silence every single day. They are fighting for their lives against companies that see them not as human beings, but as costs to be minimized. The system is broken. It prioritizes profits over patients, paperwork over people. We need to demand better. We need to hold these companies accountable. My victory was not a victory for the system. It was an indictment of it. It shouldn't take a public collapse and a social media firestorm to get the healthcare you pay for and deserve. Thank you for listening.